the Butts car park, which is across the road from the Brig Inn, and we're going to cross over there at the traffic lights. You can see there's a bus stop right there as well. You would alight at this side if you were coming from Edinburgh. This car park is called the Butts car park, and in the olden days in Scotland, men of the borough were required to practice their archery skills after church on a Sunday, and they used to do that at the Butts, where they had targets all stuffed with straw and the like that they could aim their arrows at, and they were called the Butts. So this is the Butts car park, which used to be the Railway Tavern. And the railway is just over the bridge here. I'm standing on the bridge in Bridge Street and looking over the bridge onto the route of an old railway which used to run down to Prestonpans, and now it's a walking route and we're going to walk it. So we crossed the bridge at the traffic lights and we're now at the back of the Brig Inn, and on our left here we can see the bridge, which was a railway bridge. And you might wonder, well, where was the railway? Well, panning round this way, if you look to this white cottage over here, you can just see the gable end of it, which isn't looking in very good condition at the moment. But that was the station master's cottage, and this is the start of our railway walk. The thing about this walk is that it doesn't run together chronologically, because this part of the railway is not the oldest part. This was a bit that developed further south towards the coalfields, as you know, further coalfields needed to be opened up. And so this is actually one of the newest bits, but we will get down to the oldest bit shortly. As you can see, it's a beautiful walk today. And now we are down in the Heuch. And I believe that the Heuch is so called because it was hewn, coal was hewn out of the rock here. And earlier on, in pretty good light, I could see some bits where they did that. So I'm just going to look for that now and show you where you can see the exposed rock face where coal was hewn to make this valley. There was also a little river running down the side of it, which is dry at the moment because we've had a particularly dry time. But sometimes when it's very wet, there's water in this little river. I think the water is also taken away at certain points further up in the hills to the south of us. This bit here shows you a bit that's been hewn. And because they've cut back a lot of the vegetation, you can actually see it at the moment. There are other entrance points to the Heuch. This staircase comes down from the Butts car park, but if you come down that way, then you miss going under the tunnels, and you miss the very beginning of the gradual gradient which take you all the way down to the sea. Now we're coming to the Heuch Community Garden, which has open days through the year when we're not in lockdown, of course, and which is a lovely community project. And over here on the left we've got the most magnificent magnolia tree, which is just about to come out. It's another access point because lots of people use this for dog walking and just for general recreation. It's ideal for bikes as well, and wheelchairs and mobility scooters even. And this path that goes through the woods here is the path that not originally but laterally would have taken coal trains down to Prestonpans to join the East Coast Main Line, but we're going to go off this way. So here we are now on where I think the oldest part of the Waggonway would have been. As you can see, it's right next to the church and the manse, and there's been a church on this spot here since the 8th century AD. This is probably the third building that stood on that spot. A couple of the others have been knocked down. The last one fell down. But that's really the heart of Tranent, and it's the reason for the coal industry in Tranent. And of course the coal industry is what the Waggonway was about, because the wagons used to take the coal by gravity from here down to Cockenzie to make salt. So this is us, at the northwest corner of Tranent churchyard, on the outside. Tranent used to be a huge parish which served not just the town of Tranent, but also the towns of Prestonpans and Cockenzie and Portseaton as well. And this door, well, there's just the space for it now, and the little bridge over the burn, which as you can see is very, very dry. This was for the convenience of people who came from Prestonpans to the south, to the northwest of us, and those from Portseaton and Cockenzie to the north of us. This was for them to access the church without having to go round the outside. So they had quite a long walk already, but this just made it slightly easier for them. And that's just at the crossroads. This crossroads here, which is where you can find one of the battle boards for the Battle of Prestonpans. And this is the crossroads between the Waggonway. The Waggonway stretches straight ahead of us. You can possibly hear the roar of the traffic on the A1. Just where the two posts are in the distance there, that's where a tunnel goes under the A1 to keep this path going straight on down. At the time of the building of the Tranent bypass to the A1, the people of the area definitely wanted to keep this walking route, and so they insisted on a tunnel being built underneath the A1. So this is one of the reasons that we've got the complete route from Tranent down to Cockenzie to the salt works still existing nowadays. In this direction, it goes off towards the Brickworks Road. Now, remember that this was all about the coal coming from Tranent. Didn't just serve the salt pans down in Cockenzie, but it also served brickworks along this road here, and it's still called the Brickworks Road. And then in this direction, it's the road up towards the church and the town of Tranent, the heart, what was originally the heart of the town of Tranent, although now it's on the northern extremities. And behind that big tree there, there's actually a ducat. I always call it the minister's ducat because it's right beside the church. So whether it was purely for the minister's winter meat or not, I really don't know, but I like to call it the minister's ducat. And this is us. We have walked down one side of the borough boundary of Tranent, and if we walked up this way, ahead of us now, we would be still walking around the old police borough boundary of Tranent. But we're not going to do that. We are going to go down this way, which is the way down to find the oldest part of the Waggonway. This is the route of the oldest part of the Waggonway, but it's got a fairly modern surface, and it's just used nowadays for cycling, walking and the like, and it's very accessible to pushchairs, wheelchairs, mobility scooters as well. So the crossroads with the Brickworks Road. You can also see here there's one of these things you can put on your phone, the name of which escapes me, and also it gives you a link to the app which you can use to walk not just the Waggonway but the Battle of Prestonpans route, and they actually cross one another quite a lot here. So if you download that app with the crossed swords, Prestonpans 1745, you can see lots of information about the Waggonway on your way down. We're going to walk down in this direction. This is the route of the Waggonway now, and we're going to go down and under the A1 through a tunnel, which obviously is not original, but the route, although there's no trains or wagons or anything running on anymore, the route has been continuous for nearly 300 years. 300 years in 1722. We've got the sound of the birdsong here, but we've also got the roar of the traffic from the A1 very briefly, and all kinds of vehicles using the. So here we go down towards the tunnel under the A1. This is much steeper than the route would have been originally. It was a gravity route, but it was a fairly gradual slope, so it wasn't madly dangerous. But it's quite steep at this bit here. I came down by gravity a couple of times myself and timed it, and it takes about 11 minutes. And now we're in the dark again. Here we are. We're actually having to come up a little incline now because it came down. It came down a bit steeper than it was before. So this bit here where it's been dug out to go under the A1 is we're going up a slight incline now. But we'll soon get back on the straight and gentle slope down towards the sea. So here we are coming out now at Meadow Mill. There's a sports building over there. As you can see, it says East Lothian Bowling Club, but there are various other things that happen from there, and there are sports field and astroturf beyond, which is very well used by the community normally. Of course, all sports centres are closed down at the moment, and the car park is very bare compared to what it usually is. Just a few cars parked for presumably essential maintenance. This is the site of a railway shunting yard, because at this stage there would have been quite a lot of storage of coal and other goods and so on that were going to join the East Coast Main Line at Prestonpans, and we're going to walk down towards the East Coast Main Line now. So this is the road and the line of the Waggonway down towards the East Coast Main Line. But just to my right here, you can see another road with the gate firmly closed at the moment. And that is the route of the Waggonway that came in from the east side of Tranent and joined the other one at this point. There used to be a golf range up there, but now it's the Saltire, the Scottish Ladies Team Gymnastics training ground. But at the moment they're not training because of the pandemic. Those of you who are very astute will hear the crackling of the lines beside me here, if you can hear anything at all, over the noise of that road sweeper in the council yard behind me. This is one of the routes straight up the Bing to the battlefield viewpoint. We don't think the actual battlefield was in this spot, but it's a good spot from which to see the lie of the land all round about and to be able to understand how the Battle of Prestonpans was fought and won. The last battle fought and won on Scottish soil by the Scots. So here we are at the bottom of the road, and originally the Waggonway would have carried straight on down this route here. But because when they electrified the railway some years ago, they had to build this new bridge, which is called Gardiner's Bridge, again after the Colonel who died in the Battle of 1745. So there's a kind of a dog leg in the route here that is necessary if we're going to cross the A1, which we have to do. If we cross here carefully and have a look though, we can see a little bit of the remains of that bridge. There's the East Coast Main Line down there, London in that direction, Edinburgh in the opposite direction. So we come across to this bit here and look down here, and here you can see the remains of the bridge that took the Waggonway across the East Coast Main Line. And when we get over to the other side, once we've done our dogleg, you'll be able to see that it's a dead straight line, just to keep the wagons rolling with gravity. It's a dead straight line across here over to the other side, and the other side is a real treat because it's the most it's the best preserved piece of the whole route. So now we've crossed Gardiner's Bridge and we're looking east towards, well, that's the London direction. You can see Meadowmill cottages over on the other side of the far line. But if you keep your wits about you and have a look round about you, you can see other bits of old Waggonway archaeology still here on this wall. Just down below, you can see they've reused one of the sleeper blocks of the original Waggonway in this wall, just recycling at its best, reuse at its best. And there are lots more of these at various other places on the route if you keep your eyes peeled, especially in winter and spring when there's less vegetation. Okay, here we are at the junction of the road into Prestonpans, and this is the battle cairn which commemorates the men who fought and died. There's the battle board across there which tells you more about the Battle of Prestonpans. Be careful crossing this road, you might meet the 26 bus, but at the moment it's relatively quiet, apart from all these agricultural workers who are busy laying down agricultural fleece to protect whatever it is they've got planted there. Last year it was Brussels sprouts, so we had fields of Brussels sprouts on either side of the Waggonway. I'm not quite sure what it's going to be this year. But if you look over to the right, you can see the wall. And that wall is one side of the most original part of the old Waggonway. There's a lady with a white top walking down there just at the moment. But we're going to walk down it. We're just going to go along here until we come to it. And then you'll find the secret entrance to the oldest part of the Waggonway. And here we are at the entrance to the oldest part of the Waggonway, which goes straight down from here down to Cockenzie. As you walk down here, keep your eyes peeled just in case there's any more sleeper blocks that you might see that have been utilised in this wall. There's a beautiful wall on either side, although at various times of the year you can't even see it because it's covered in brambles, but at the moment you can see some bits of it. Just cut out all the traffic noise and just concentrate on the bird song and imagine the rumble of wooden trucks coming down this Waggonway. It would have wooden rails laid on wooden sleepers, wooden trucks with wooden wheels. Everything was made of wood in 1722. And it might not have had these walls, they might have been added later. We're not sure, but we are sure that this is the route of the Waggonway because it's always been known as such. And what's more, a little bit further down here, in June 2019, we actually discovered the base of it, and I'll show you where it is. And if you can keep an eye on our website and you manage to come along at some stage when we're doing excavations there, when we're allowed to excavate again, then if you time it properly, you might be able to come along and even join in the dig if you're so inclined, but certainly experience what it looks like down at the bottom of the Waggonway. Here we are down at the battle site part. Well, that's where there are a couple of monuments to those who died in the battle. These are much more modern. They were only put up a couple of years ago by the 1745 Battlefield Trust, and they were made by Gardner Malloy, a local stonemason. So here are the names of the various parts of the British Army who fought at the Battle of Prestonpans. Amongst them you can see Gardner's 13th Dragoons, and Colonel Gardner was the one who died at the Thorn Tree and was conveyed in a wagon to Tranent, Manse, and he died there of his injuries. And we're just assuming he would have gone up, if he was in a wagon, he would have probably gone straight up that Waggonway, straight up the hill to Tranent. This is us looking south now, and that's the route that we've just walked down. But beside this table tomb is the location of our June 2019 dig, and it's quite well documented online on our website, and also there's a display in the museum. But basically what happened at this site was we dug down for about a metre, about the height of that wall again, down below the ground, and discovered not just the traces of where wooden rails had been, but also a cobbled pathway between the two rails. And we assume that the cobbled pathway was to give the ponies a bit of purchase. Although the wagons would have rolled down this hill to the north, to the Forth, to the salt pans, they would have rolled down by gravity. a pony would have taken 4 or 5 wagons back, empty wagons, back up the hill to Tranent. And the cobbles at the foot of, between the 2 rails would have given the ponies a bit of purchase to help them to pull the wagons up. So we're going to carry on now through the trees and down to the end of this beautifully preserved old part, and unfortunately we have to walk alongside a much more modern road, which is however called the Coal Road roundabout here. So we're moving away from the area that's got walls on either side now, and we're into bits with some trees with a lot more vegetation. This is a lovely leafy route with the trees at times coming right over the top of the road, and it's a very pleasant walk at any time of the year. But here we have the gate at the end of the Waggonway, and now we are about to cross the road which goes from Tranent straight down the hill to Cockenzie. And the road, the Waggonway crossed this, well, the road wasn't there, but the Waggonway would have gone on this route straight across the road, and then would have gone down the side of the wall, which is just at the far side of the road where the runner is going past now. So we managed to persuade them to put in this new crossing point so that it was easier for pushchairs and wheelchairs and mobility scooters to use this route. And so they're actually quite safe at the moment to cross the road. It's supposed to be 40 miles an hour, but they don't always stick to it. This is us crossing onto the road, and here we are. We're back on the route of the Waggonway again. Now we cut straight across the road for safety's sake. This is us looking down north towards Cockenzie and Port Seton, but if you look back up the road again, you can see that bare patch there where the parking spot is, and that's where the track comes out through the woods. And you can see that it's a fairly straight line there, that we just crossed the safest way, which was the shortest way. The route would have come straight down this way. Now across the road is the now redundant power station coal plant, which is where they used to store the coal for Cockenzie Power Station from the time that it opened in the 1960s right through until it finished operations sometime in the 2010s. And that's why it's called the Coal Road, but in actual fact the whole thing's been called the Coal Road for much, much longer, because here we are still. The pavement is more or less the route of the Waggonway all the way down to Cockenzie in pre-industrial revolution times, when there was no, the coal was not being used for steam power or for steam engines. It was being used to convert the seawater into salt, which was the whole reason for the Waggonway being built in the first place. Now we're still on the route of the Waggonway at the moment, but we have a roundabout to contend with here. So to get safely across the roundabout, we need to do a little bit of a dog leg here. But the route would be the one that just goes straight down between those trees, further down there, just almost exactly where it says the sign Cockenzie and Port Seton. We have to come round to the crossing point on the roundabout, which is across here. But we'll very quickly rejoin the route again. And by the time we come round the side of this hedge, we'll be back onto the actual route. So here we are back on the route again, with the wall to the side of us, and you can see that lots of people are enjoying the route ahead of us on this lovely day. There's people walking, there's people walking their dogs, there's people with their children and their bikes. And I think the birds are enjoying the comparative peace and quiet as well. This wall on our right would have been a boundary for one side of the Waggonway, and there's probably traces of it underneath our feet as we walk. Now we've come right into Cockenzie to point of this triangular park, which is known as the Millennium Park and is beautifully looked after by the Cockenzie and Port Seton in Bloom group. And to our right is the doctor's surgery and a part of the original wall of the Waggonway. But at this stage, the Waggonway would have gone down the inside of the doctor's wall. So where that red car is, on that side of the wall, the very first Waggonway would have gone straight down that route, and more of that route later. But then the second route that was instigated in about 1815, when Cadell asked Robert Louis Stevenson's grandfather, to improve the harbour at Port Seton for the export of salt and other commodities. The line, and a further line, was built over on the other side of this road here. Would have been right in front of that row of cottages. We're going to cross over and walk down that side there from the 1815 Waggonway. But if we look across the Millennium Gardens, you can see the wall of the doctors, and on the other side of that wall was the original 1722 Waggonway. And between the two, just peeping through the trees there, past the War Memorial, is Cockenzie House, which is where the family who ran the Waggonway for a good part of the time, and certainly made all the improvements to it, from about the 1750s, I believe it was, through until about 100 years ago. They lived in Cockenzie House, and its history is very much tied up with the history of the Waggonway. The road here. We come to this cairn arrangement with an anchor on either side of it, and beyond it you can see the wall of Cockenzie House, and you can see that it's been built in two stages. The lower part is the original wall, and the upper part is built with clinker that was brought in as ballast to the ship in the ships in the harbour. And you can see there's a sort of an angle down the side of it there, and that was cut to allow the Waggonway to come straight down this road and straight down that side of Cockenzie House. So we're going to cross the road and walk across to there, as lots of other people appear to be doing on this lovely day. So, walking straight down and getting a really good look at the wall here. So this is the pavement of Stevenson's harbour, which we exposed over a period of about 3 years, from 2017, 2018, 2019, in increments. And there are lots of interesting things under here which we just can't see at the moment. You'd have to look at the website to see all the really interesting stuff that's here, but you'll have to take my word for it. Under this here, there's a big deep hatch which goes down into that chute that we think took coal further down towards the surface of the water. And there is also, somewhere in this vicinity, around about here, there's also a huge remaining turntable. But for me, the really exciting stuff is that you can usually see the sleeper blocks here. Right, and here's one here. I'm looking the wrong way. Right, so there's one there, still in situ with its chair. And I'm going to turn the camera around the other way and see if I can get rid of the shadows and the sunlight. Probably not a very possible thing at the moment. This is the Waggonway Museum, unfortunately closed at the moment. You could easily miss it. It's on the U-shaped road, West Harbour Road, and it hasn't got anything very much distinguishing it except this little sign that says the Waggonway Project. But when we're open, there's usually a wagon sitting just outside these big doors here.